on New Year's Eve? Why do you think that I am going to look at year 10, having progressed, having come and gone, of me sitting in sorrow? (2014 to 2024). Now that I'm in year 10, why do you think, why would I, in this 10th year of you working so hard to make sure I go nowhere? Why, when I have made it 10 years down the line and you're still so scared of me after all these years? I mean, I was supposed to die, and I mean, I am not supposed to be scary, right? I mean, no, come on, let's talk about this, like just ever so briefly. A 10-year gap in my CV. You shouldn't be scared anymore. You shouldn't be scared anymore, guys. I mean, who has a canyonic void 10 years big, gaping, abysmal in their curriculum vitae, and is still being competed with by people who in that time have amassed for themselves 10 years of work experience, 10 years of salary increases, and 10 years to essentially pay off home loans, cars, and be halfway to being debt-free. Loss of income. You've had 10 years to be senior managers, executives maybe, and in very extreme cases of very gifted souls, maybe even CEOs of companies. You've had 10 years to outrun me. You have had a decade to sprint. Oh, hey. I'm the tortoise, aren't I? In this particular analogy. You know the story of the tortoise and the hare? You're the rabbit, you're the hare. You've had 10 years to sprint. 10 years, a decade. Why are you scared of me? I mean, after 10 years have progressed, guys, what are the odds that you, having finally landed and succeeded in that job interview as a senior manager or an executive, a general manager, or in very extreme cases, maybe even a CEO of some organization that was willing to give your lazy behind a chance to actually be running it as a conglomerate? I mean, once you're chilling in the position of an executive, guys, I am 40. I'm 40. I'm 40. My peers who are degreed and skilled are running teams, maybe even entire business units, and in very extreme cases, companies. My peers are 40, 45. My peers are 39, 35. When I was 29 years old, I had been newly promoted from project manager to program manager. My boss was 1984 as well, my exact age. He was 29 too. And he was newly promoted from senior business analyst to senior manager. One up on me. Here are two young professionals, 29 years old. One is running programs. The first program I ran, which cost me my whole career, was a company-wide program into the program of which reported into the company CEO, MTN SA's CEO at the time. I am telling you right now today, the CEO of MTN SA at the time of me losing my job can, in his sleep, give you the details of my case and give you my name and my surname, even my middle name, when asked about me. He knew me. And he knew me unforgettably. because he tried to fight for me to stay, but he was cooed and overwhelmed by a conglomerate of barbarians, similar to the case of Daniel in the lion's den, where Darius's hands were tied and the guy was thrown in the lion's den anyway. The CEO of the former MTN SA CEO, at the time of me losing my job, Zunaid Bobulia, would be lying if the name Karabo Hlongwane was mentioned and he was like, who's that? I don't know. Still to this day, I am certain that man remembers me, name, surname, entire details of what is going on with me. That is the professional track I was on. MTN, for those of you who don't know, but you probably do, because it keeps on winning brand awards across the world. But I'll give you information just in case you have lack of understanding. MTN is, at the time, don't know what's ever since then changed. I'm already keeping tabs with the telco industry, but it was the second largest telecommunications company in South Africa, second to no one but Vodacom. It was, however, the largest service offering for prepaid, whereas Vodacom was the largest service offering for contract or postpaid. MTN, however, slayed Vodacom in Africa because of its opcos, operating companies in other parts of Africa. It branched out. It was like, what do you call this? Electricity supplier nonsense person in the country, Eskom. You know how Eskom in the days of apartheid was supplying electricity to our neighboring countries because they were having a hard time. Now they are choking it up a storm, breathing out, coughing out blood, wheezing with emphysema like a geriatric because they've dropped the ball because our government sucks. But MTN, in terms of how prolific it is in Africa, is similar to what Telkom was in the days of apartheid. Not Telkom, Eskom, an energy powerhouse, but instead of an African energy powerhouse, that's Eskom, used to be. Now it's just whatever. How about we just vomit? But MTN is a telco powerhouse in Africa as a continent. Africa, of which, allow me to just highlight this and put this out there, is the second largest continent on the planet. So if you have got the largest telecommunications company in the second largest continent on Africa, you're freaking huge. Hence why it used to win so many brand awards. It used to come in like second, third to companies like Coca-Cola. That's the company I used to work for. And I used to work not for Group, but for SA. And at the time of losing everything, its CEO was Zunaid Bobulia. When Zunaid came on board, there was this program that was run that was supposed to defibrillate MTN during a season of Archer choking it up a storm because it was losing market share, and the market was getting saturated and it was no longer making as much. It was no longer making as much as before. So they kept on changing up CEOs like no man's business, like underwear. And at the time of my situation, Zunaid was the sitting CEO. And he was therefore spearheading this program that was to basically bring South Africa, MTN South Africa, up to a certain standard, a certain level, so we don't choke like a geriatric with emphysema. This program was prioritized as number one in the company for SA. It was prioritized as number one to fulfill this strategy, to basically flip the model, to switch, to change the trajectory, the downward one at that the company was now going in. Even though we were doing well, we were not doing as well as we were before. So we needed to do something to flip it real quick. Now, one would imagine that a program is basically this mother hen of projects, right? And a program manager has underneath him or her a whole bunch of project managers that run projects that feed into this program, and this program manager will then report into their manager. So if it is a company-wide program that is number one in all of that company in SA, you need to understand that the boss above it is the CEO, as opposed to just an executive of a department, like an executive over finance, or an executive over operations, or an executive over IS or IT, or business operations. Nah. Programs run on a normal day, under normal circumstances. Their project owners and their project sponsors will tend to be general managers over departments, over business units. Ours was being gazed upon with carefulness by the actual CEO, because it was a company-wide program, meaning that all the individual programs on the ground of the company were feeding into this main program. So it was basically a program that had program managers, under which there were then project managers, because program managers had to be heads or responsible over their individual business units, under their individual teams, under their individual business units. That's how big that program was. It was not just any program, it was the program with a capital T. And I hopped in there as a 29-year-old project manager. During a company restructure, my boss, who was a senior manager, then gets put above us all and is then entrusted with delegating a program manager over this program, because it was largely his department that would take care of the affairs of this particular program. Because MTN was a marketing company, largely, much of its service offerings flowed from the marketing department, and our project management and business analysis and testing teams serviced that leg. And so our senior manager was then made to spearhead the searching, like Wimbawe in the wilderness process, to out here be looking for a program manager to run a company-wide program where he is going to be reporting into the CEO, and the program manager is going to be reporting into the CEO directly, and the individual executives across MTN SA would then also have to account to him, even though he was junior in comparison to them. It's called a matrix organization, where it is that people are not necessarily your subordinates, but by mere virtue of you being accountable to a certain set of deliverables, they have got to give you feedback because you're the one collating that information. So it's not like they were his line subordinates. His line subordinates were us, but still nonetheless his stakeholders, that were these executives that were under the CEO, had to account to him, because he was the one that was basically running that program, and it was priority number one in all of the organization, as per the decision of the CEO and the board of MTN SA. And this man came into the job. I worked with him a couple of weeks when he was new, and I so flew like a bird, I so soared like a dove in the sky, like an eagle, that he was unfazed by how junior I was on paper. He got promoted in a company restructure and sat in a particular job. I worked with him for a few weeks in his teething into the team, and he so trusted me and so relied on everything that I am, and I so swimmingly made his entry into that position, that in spite of how junior I was for that job, he didn't care, because what mattered to him was that I was on the ball, I did the job, I was reliable. He made me his 2IC, his proxy, me and some other business analyst chick, such that when he was not able to make meetings, he would then tell me, you go, please sit in for me. As a result of that, I sat amidst executives a lot. I sat amidst very powerful men in the company and women, senior managers, general managers, when under normal circumstances, I didn't generally sit with these people. But because I was a proxy for my boss, they got to know me. When then this program was introduced, my boss was like, I don't trust anyone else. I don't trust anybody else. I have been given a purchase order, essentially, to hire out, seek out a program manager for this program. But what's the point of out here recruiting from outside, or even trying to find a program manager in the business that I've never worked with before, that I don't trust? I've seen you handle my affairs at the height that I have to deal with stakeholders in the business. So you're as good as any other program manager. How would you like to take on this opportunity? I was like, yeah, of course. So here were these two 29-year-olds, both of us. Guy goes from being senior manager, so goes from being business analyst, senior business analyst, slays a whole bunch of people more experienced than him in interviews, and becomes a senior manager. Everybody out to be passing him shade, giving him grief for being young. And then he goes and gives the job that belonged to some 45-year-old man, some dude that's actually been doing time for a minute, like a hardened criminal. Decides to pass that guy up, those guys up, those girls up, that have got PMPs, that have got all different kinds of certifications, doctorate degrees, masters, and I'm still out here trying to finish my degree at varsity. And he was like, we got this. And he gave me that job. I ran it. I'm not going to explain the rest of the story because I was sabotaged by literally everything that could breathe. But it was me gaining that boost. Do you understand? That cost me my entire career. I was sabotaged. And I did such an excellent job before I was thrown under the bus, including by that very same 29-year-old boss of mine, that the CEO of the company tried to salvage me to no avail, because everyone wanted me gone. I am a whip cracker, and I cracked a whip. I did so well that a whole horde of mutineers and miscreants refused to let me stay. They fabricated information, they fabricated details, they embellished stuff, and they got me fired. I have explained story Sena many times before. I'm not going to labor. But they were so below the belt. They were so incredibly tactless in the way that they dealt with me that essentially right now on MTN's books, I am both fired and resigned. I am a combination of dismissed and resigned because I conveniently was dismissed to Investec, because when you get dismissed, you lose your shares, which are underwritten by Investec. I was conveniently dismissed under Investec, but I conveniently resigned under the Unemployment Insurance Fund, UIF, when I tried to get money. When I tried to get something to pay my rent, now that I didn't have a salary anymore. So MTN can't agree whether or not I was dismissed or whether or not I was fired. They can't agree. However, the CCMA, the reason I lost my case was because apparently, allegedly, I resigned. So essentially, I didn't lose my case at the CCMA. It was thrown out because they stuck to the guns of me being resigned. They could not say that I deserved to lose my job with any level of believability. If any auditor rocked up inside CCMA and gazed upon those records, they would be like, but why did you say that this woman doesn't deserve compensation? Nah, because she just left. She quit her job. Yeah, the CCMA voted that I quit my job. I resigned. And that's why they just did not give me anything for my case. But in the beginning of the arbitration, they actually tried to get me to settle for 3 months' salary. when their gross misconduct ought have paid me at a minimum 12 months salary and at a maximum 24 months salary, and I still would have been viable to go to a civil court and sue for damages over and above that. And they try to give me 3 months. I fought for myself. There is a tape recording, go Gandhi Square, with buses out here rasaring in the background. And I won that case under a fair judge, but I was not dealing with a fair advocate, now was I? And so at the end of that arbitration that is recorded, at the end of that recorded arbitration, instead of vote, dismissed, she deserved to go, she insubordinated, she did ABC, they simply said I resigned. They simply said I resigned. Understand this, I'm out here sitting with a notice of dismissal letter in my possession, but I resigned. It's like MTN letterhead and everything, paperback, like it's not even electronic where some people could do fraud. It's got like signature ya Tembanyati, HR executive at the time. Notice of dismissal effective immediately. But I resigned? Yeah. However, to Investec, I was fired. To Investec, I was fired, so that made me lose hundreds of thousands of rands worth of shares. And to UIF, I resigned. And when you resign, you don't get to claim insurance for unemployment. You don't get to just quit your job and have us as the government pay you while you look for another one. So I also lost apartments, and it's just, yeah, it's a whole thing. That's my case. Just a violent sabotage. Do you understand what I'm saying? The charge that they trumped up to get me suspended in the first place wasn't even raised at the CCMA because they had trumped up brand spanking new charges later. They had infringed on my rights to privacy, on my dignity rights as a South African citizen, by talking with no one but my mother about my case, even though no court had invalidated me as able to act on my own behalf. They committed crimes right next to civil heinous acts. I am owed millions, but I dropped it because I stopped caring. And I said, okay, you know what? Y'all don't want to pay me damages. You don't want to pay me anything. You don't even want to pay me UIF. You don't want to pay me shares. Okay, fine. Let me go work. Okay, fine. Let me go work. Every last reference on my CV, friends, family, not friends, sorry, former bosses, alongside the world, former bosses from old companies that I worked for, right next to the ones that I worked for under at MTN. Whenever recruitment agents would call them for a reference about me, they would tell them that I was this thing that dropped the ball, I was lackluster, I sucked, I A, I B, I C. Under the Labor Relations Act, no one is allowed, for the sake of proliferating employment gains in this country, to curtail the unemployment statistic. It is now officially illegal, but people are not learning stuff, right? To I'll just say, she sucked, don't hire her. Nobody is allowed to ask for a reference of a person anymore. You can only give praises, but if you have nothing good to say, you ought only say no comment. Because then if you don't do that, you infringe on a constitutional right for a person to make a living. You are messing with their prospects of being employed, and South Africa is trying to eradicate unemployment. So to basically stand in the way of someone getting a job is, I was going to say sinful since I'm a Christian, but what's true there is that it's criminal. It's a civil, no, it's not criminal per se, but it is a civil demeanor. It can win you damages. It is unjust, it's wrong, it ought not be done. They were supposed to say no comment. The only reason, frankly, why anybody should call a company to find out about you having worked there is to confirm that you did ever work there. In other words, was this person on your books from this date to that date? Yeah, okay, cool. I've confirmed employment. That's it. But if you want praises to be sung, you can tell a recruitment agent, ask them how I was, because you trust that your former boss loved you. But otherwise, under the Labor Relations Act, they're supposed to merely just confirm employment. And maybe some person can overshare and say there was such an excellent PM, but they cannot say you sucked. They also, if at all they ask what kind of an employee was Karabo, if they have no good opinion, they have to say no comment. But nobody's being trained. Nobody's being trained. They cannot, because of the constitution of this country, say this person bit and chewed. There is no company I ever left except for MTN, where I left in bad blood. In other words, where I was out here warring in a cockpit wearing nothing but dibunga with my bosses. It was always a cordial resignation, with me serving 1 month notice, 2 weeks, depending on how long I stayed in the company, and me getting a nice little farewell party at the end. Oh, I will miss you, Karabo, tears and everything. However, despite all that, my former bosses lied. They sabotaged me. They spoke about me like I was the scum of the earth. When one recruitment agent called them and told me, oh guys, they called bosses at MTN, hit brick walls, got bad references, and so they decided to go to my former employers. Why? Because I told them the truth. Even though MTN claims I resigned, me, I didn't resign. I was fired. I was dismissed, and I didn't lie about that on my CV. I told my big, long, tall story to whatever recruitment agent would listen to me. And one particular recruitment agent, dude, I'm grateful for that guy till to this day. He decided to let me know what's going on. He told me, instead of just like ghosting me, disappearing on me, because the rest of them would call me, be all excited with me, and the next thing, they ghost me. This one didn't ghost me. This one did not ghost me. This one got back to me and was like, all the best, Sisi. I hope you live to tell your story. But I can't place you with Rand Merchant Bank. He was trying to place me with RMB as a RMB as a project manager. Handsome salary. And that fell through because of MTN and everyone refusing to let me work again. I told this guy my whole long story as to what in the world under heaven happened with me at MTN. He was prepared to give me a chance. In fact, quite a few recruitment agents, maybe like 4, were prepared to give me a chance. 3 of them ghosted me afterwards because they heard vile stories about me. The 4th one, at least, made like the leper that was cleansed by Jesus Christ and came back to say thank you, in the sense that he gave me 411 understanding as to what was going on. Because I told them the whole long story as to what in the world under heaven happened to me, they took MTN's counsel with a pinch of salt. They took the reference list on MTN, my bosses at MTN. They took what they said with a pinch of salt. And so they made a decision to give me a shot and hear what my other bosses have to say, because I left in bad blood, go MTN, and it was a whole chunky 5 years of my curriculum vitae. So let's be fair to this unfortunate woman. And so they called backward. They called Kijima. They called Nedbank. They called, I think they stopped at like Nedbank. I don't think they called like where I was at in the call centers or whatever, because that was not necessary. Only really highly professional job spaces did they call there, and my bosses gave worthless feedback about me. Yes, like it, guys. Yazi, hey man, Yazi, when the scriptures say the world hates disciples, understand it is not a lie. It's not a lie. My bosses at MTN out here reviled my name. And then the recruitment agent decided to give me another shot and call backward, and they also reviled my name, such that every last job opportunity that I tried to get by myself fell through because of bad referencing. Why would my former bosses lie? Bosses that knew nothing about what happened to me at MTN. Why would they lie? I was that girl. One time when I was working in the call center at Teleshore, my boss singled me out in a room and humiliated me in front of my colleagues by making them listen to a call of mine and say that that's how you don't do things. I reported her to her boss. On some, she singled me out and she victimized me without talking to me personally. And I couldn't even see what was the problem with the call that I made. None of my colleagues could see what was the problem with the call that I made. They consoled me like I had lost a loved one, bereaved and everything, after that humiliating meeting, because she was obviously gunning for me. After I told on her own boss, the woman RJB asking me for a big fat chunky favor to write her a letter. For 702, she had a child that was very sick with cancer, and she wanted to write. 702 had this like make a wish thing. You wrote in your wish, and if you win, you can have them finance that wish. And this woman wanted her wish to be financed, where it is that she wanted to bring to her, to basically homeschool her child by streaming education at school into her home. And she asked me to write that letter for her because I was that well-spoken and that articulate. So she was basically picking a bone with how articulate I am. One time, that same boss, before asking me for that favor, said to me in my face when I was speaking with her, "You're arrogant." And I didn't even know where that came from. I have been getting fly kicked by men and women throughout my career for being gifted. One of my other bosses, where I used to be a trainer at Nedbank, flat out refused to finance my education, despite it being a package that came with the job. She said that I first have to do my years and my time before they will pay for my education. When I applied for that bursary, and however, it was stipulated in the rules of the bursary that if you quit MTN, not MTN, but Nedbank, if you leave Nedbank before basically giving us our money's worth for taking you to school, you have to pay us back. So she basically lied about me needing to be on probation first, because they don't need you to be on probation. They will pay for your fees insofar as you work for them. But if you quit before they've juiced you for all that education, you have to pay them back. She refused because she was competing with her subordinate. Why did you hire me? But that's just the thing. She did hire me, but I came highly recommended by another colleague of hers. And so apparently, allegedly, she had to take me. I've been getting fly kicked by my bosses. Where at Kijima, I worked as an intern project manager. Some chick that I was shadowing that was also a project manager would out here in my face say, "I'm gonna support you. I got your back. The two of us, yay, let's run into the sunset." And she was also born in 1984. And then she would go to our boss and tell him that I am dropping the ball. I am so weak. I suck. Until my boss changed on me, I didn't know why. He started giving me attitude, passing me shade. I was on probation in the sense that you could only be made permanent if you've proven yourself. So I was on shaky water. I was facing unemployment, and my boss had out here turned his back on me. Until these two colleagues came and told me what happened. They were like, "Karabo, I'm sorry, I couldn't keep quiet. I couldn't keep quiet. Because one time we were in a meeting and this chick was out just speaking about you like your fecal matter." I was like, oh, that can explain why our boss looks at us, at me, like I'm the scum of the earth. That company met with retrenchments, and I took voluntary retrenchment so that I could escape that environment because I was not safe in it. And so I interviewed for another branch, another division of the same company, but it was just so IS heavy and I didn't like it that I took a demotion and ended up working as a program coordinator at MTN, and that's how I got into MTN. But at MTN, I only went in there because they promised to give me a project management job after showing myself worthy for about 6 months. I interviewed initially as I was punted highly by the recruitment agent who loved me so much that she hassled MTN on my behalf. Eventually they were like, fine, we'll see her. And when I was interviewing as a project manager for MTN, within the first 5 minutes of that interview, my would-be boss and another lady there from HR were like, Karabo, we like you, but you're too junior to be a project manager for our company, but we like you. We like you, so how would you like to be a program coordinator, be an administrator, essentially, somewhat of that, for like 6 months? Let's suss you out. Let's see what you taste like on the left and on the right. And then if you're good enough, we'll take you right back to project management. And besides, the little salary that you were earning as an intern there in the former company, we'll up you on it by a couple of thousand. So it's not like you're going to be taking a pay cut. So because there was no cut with what I was taking home, but if anything, a little bit of an increase, I was like, it's fine. I'll start again. Even though I've already got project management experience, I'll start again from the bottom, and then I will work my way back up again. Did those buggers hire me in 6 months? No. I sat in that job disillusioned for 2 years. For 2.5 years, I sat in that silly job because of the same phenomenon. My bosses, they refused to let me grow. They refused to let me move. It would be a project manager that got promoted to program manager that was working in our business unit, but I was not servicing him. I was not servicing his team as a program coordinator. Some other dude was servicing them. So he never got to work with me directly. But he was in the same business unit under the same senior manager. It was like a senior manager with like 4 program managers under whom they had multiple teams of project managers. So I reported into the senior manager lady, and then the 2 coordinators reported into 2 senior managers each. So I was, And I, however, serviced my senior manager alongside one other guy, one program manager, while my colleagues serviced 2 program managers each. But all of us reported into the senior manager. So yeah, you get my point. That was the structure. I never got to work with this guy because my colleagues were his administrators while he was a project manager. One of the senior managers gets a job. No, one of the program managers applies for a job as a senior manager, gets it in another business unit, so he gets promoted, and the vacancy becomes open, and then a project manager applies for that vacancy and gets the job. It was only once this project manager guy got the promotion to program manager that anybody gave me a chance to be a project manager. And lo and behold, guess what? He turned out to be a Christian. As in, when I say flying cakes of boot prints on my face by bosses, bahane, that I have been thwarted all my life, all my career, by people who were like, over my dead body before you will go anywhere. Thanks to this project manager who became a program manager, I then became a project manager. And then I was given to some other woman instead of him for a subordinate. Unfortunately, she gave me grief from here to Timbuktu and was among the people that gave me a worthless reference when MTN called. At the time of losing my job, she was not my boss, but she was for the majority of my tenure as a PM at MTN. And she lied. I thought that she would at least have my back, but she lied. I did not have any faith in the boss that I had, the last one, in saying anything normal about me. But because I was obviously wrongfully dismissed, I thought that that woman would be mature, but she saw it fit to boot print me on my chest and lie. I was under her for 2.5 years, and she used to wreak havoc in my life, but I didn't expect that she would go that low. Y'all need to understand, if the Lord has set apart someone, He has set apart someone, He has set apart someone. If the Lord has set apart someone, He has set apart someone, He has set apart someone, okay? It was only with change of management that I was ever given the break that I needed. The change of management, the restructure that put that 29-year-old senior manager, that guy that was my age, got me the promotion as a program manager. The boss that I was under kept on giving me these ridiculous appraisal scores every year, even lower than people I trained. My whole life has been riddled with sabotage by people who wanted to basically simmer me down, people who wanted to put me in my place, handle me, people who felt like I needed to just calm down, breathe easier. But God always brought somebody else to overrule their opinion, overrule their reign of terror. The Lord always brought someone else, and that's the only reason why I ever got any promotion at all. God always brought someone else to overrule some tyrant on my chest. Before I was saved, how much more, now that I'm born again, will the Lord keep on sending overrulers above all this crap, all this crap, wreaking havoc in my life? I only ever breathe because somebody else is hired in the position of the last person that was salt in my open wounds, insult to my injuries. The last person that was the bane of my existence that would have kept me an administrator for 5 years. God always finds a way for me to escape. It's written in God's word that the Lord opens a door that no one can shut, and when he shuts a door, can't nobody open it. So when the Lord is determining to do a certain thing, the Lord will set his child free through whatever he will do. No one can deliver from his hand, don't you see? His servants are chosen neatly, particularly from eternity past, gazed upon all their lives, and favors are pulled in for them in ways that are observably supernatural, ways that are observably divine. But in the run-up to, there's so many saboteurs on the left and on the right. Sifuba, Saka, I've been set on it, this chest of mine, all my career, from the time I was just an intern, all the way up until I was on a professional track. I've been getting people squatting on my chest like it's a long drop in Rustenburg before they made toilets. And I've only ever been set free not by the repentance of the squatter, but by the reignition or the ignition of a new person in the room that would find the squatting activity frankly unacceptable. It's always someone else. People never repented in my life, never. Like no one ever chose to do differently where I'm concerned. No one. No one that has ever had it in for me has ever just stopped already. It's written in God's word that a broken and a contrite spirit he will not despise. So when people repent, basically, everybody forgives. We let it go. It's water under the bridge. It's nothing. We move on. We don't bear grudges. Love does not hold a record of past wrongs. So if you just stop doing a stupid thing, I'll forget about it. No one has ever made me forget about it. Because at the time of me being set free from some tyrant, at the time of me being set free, there tends to have been some tyrant on my chest. Kimo Bankense administrated 2.5 years, and if it was not for some project manager getting promoted, I never would have gotten the promotion. My boss would have kept on giving me dumb appraisal scores until some other person kicked him to the curb. And then I got made a program manager, but that was an end run on my career. This time around, I got such a big boost with limited experience and qualification that they were like, I got targeted sabotage vibes by witches and just random daylight robbers who, in spite of not being witches, they're nice and scandalous in how they can rip a carpet from underneath a person's feet, Baba Shebile, in broad daylight. I was lied about in such provable ways that this is a shame that I'm unemployed 10 years down the line. Shame. Documents were ignored. Paper trails were ignored. Evidence was ignored. Exculpatory. These individuals were inculpated by my case. And yet, I'm out here looking like the smooth criminal among them. I'm out here looking like the one here that is culpable. After all these years of a gaping, yawning gap in my CV, I look irresponsible. So you would imagine that after a whole decade has progressed, that y'all can rest easy. I mean, come on, breathe now. Hey, make like Tony Braxton, and breathe again. You can relax, guys. You have prospered to put a canyon, a gaping abyss in my CV of a decade. I mean, I'm not catching up now. I'm not catching up now. I can't. 10 years. I mean, let's count that. Like we've got an abacus, like little children. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Round off to the nearest 10 children. Okay. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yay. Decade. Why put the abacus away when you can make it 20 years, right? Because after all, am I not still so very intimidating? You're gonna make it 20, aren't you? I mean, you are trying. You're gonna make it 15. Because, I mean, you are trying. You will not abandon your abacus, don't you see? Because I will always be the thing that, albeit having no experience, albeit having little training, will nonetheless land a job so prolific that people that have been doing time for 20 years will be like, how did this child land this job, this coveted position? That program management position where I would be reporting into the CEO with my boss. There was this one Afrikaans dude, looked like he could be pushing 50. That was a contractor for MTN. That one of the operations, one of the executives recommended him. He was a program manager and he refused to work for MTN permanently because he was just such a sought after skill. And on top of that, he had so many other choices, so many other options. He worked for other, basically it would thwart his money. He didn't want a 9 to 5. And yet despite his rules and regulations, his terms and conditions, they kept him on paper because he was that good. And so some executive from some department was like, for the program, I highly recommend this Jacobus or whatever. Let's say his name was Jacobus. And my boss was like, it's cool. I got someone. It's fine. I don't want Jacobus. The manager dude, the executive guy that recommended Jacobus, had already spoken with Jacobus. On some Jacobus, I'm going to speak to this person to put you on contract for this program. I want you. And he had to go back to Jacobus and say somebody else has been put on board. When Jacobus finally learned who was the person that got the job instead of him, and I was on MTN's salary. I was on a monthly salary, so I did not get any. Basically, they got my skill for cheap. Jacobus looked at me on some, okay, whatever, I don't care. I then got a dream while I was working that program, with Jacobus coming to me and asking me, how do you do it? How in the world are you doing it? I then respond to Jacobus and I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. He's like, how are you running such a big program all by yourself with such little experience? Jacobus didn't really give me attitude. He just looked at me like, all the best. Very soon, I'm going to be contracted. That chick is out the way. And I was not moved out the way because I killed it. So I guess it makes sense, doesn't it? That after a whole decade has come and gone, you're still sitting on my chest hoping to progress me to 45 and then 50 without employment. You are still working tooth and nail to keep me out of a job because I'm good in ways that are unfathomable. I'm like a genius child in school. But even though they should, like every other child, go from grade 8 to matric, they skip over and Alger at the age of 12 are doing first year varsity. That's who I am. That's who you're messing with. And so it is no wonder you are not satisfied with me being 40 and a yawning gap of 10 years in it. That's why you're not satisfied with me being looked at by anybody. Because you have an acute awareness that I'm gonna just keep on getting jobs that I'm unqualified for. Because I am relied on. I'm trustworthy. I am Daniel in the lion's den. And my boss is Darius. He prefers me, but you're standing on my chest. You're standing on my chest. You're sitting on my chest, squatting on it like a long drop in Rustenburg. Langtaba. And so because Langtaba, now you are prepared that I should pass away. In this 10 years that I've been sitting around gathering all this dust, I started my own thing. I started my own thing. I did this ministry. I polished it. I learned stuff. I became aware of the world at large. And now I'm somewhat of a journalist for God. And you be hating on that too. You be out here coming all up in the grill of that too. You took up my 9 to 5 away. You took my career. My boring suit job with a kwai. You took that away. And now you are just trying to take away my creative job. You are homicidal. You are murder freaks. Proper. You gonna out here kill a woman because God gifted her. You gonna out here kill a human being because how to make her jojoba and out here scan groceries at the Pick and Pay. There is nothing you can do to make her do that. And so now death has become a necessary evil. Death is now your necessary evil. I gotta die? For real? Like I'm going home to die no more. I must be reconciled with my maker. Because I'm gifted, I'm sorry. When you keep killing paradigm shifters in society, you will, in all of your crazy mediocrity, ever dwindle into an abysmal asymptote, flatlining on the x-axis, achieving no great feats, just staying stationary and standard, regular, ordinary, just fine, nice, okay, lackluster words that ought not be used in anybody's English vocabulary. You will only ever flatline. So it is no wonder the world comes to a blistering end when Cain keeps killing Abel. Because there is nothing anymore to grow and progress. When stuff does not grow, it putrefies. When stuff is stationary, it starts to die. When stuff does not move up, down, left, right, even just spinning on the spot, for crying out loud. When there is no movement, there is stagnation. It's called a code. Comatose. It's dead. It's catatonic. It is therefore dying. Let's get our affairs in order now. How about we arrange a funeral? Let's put it in the ground. It is no longer useful. You are killing the earth as we know it, with all of your sabotage of better people than you. How are you gonna go and grab your skilled resources on the ground, on the left and on the right, and use witchcraft to manipulate where they go, and when then they thrive anyway in spite of all of the sorcery? My oh my, look at you now, pull in strings. Where it is that you are working, social media companies, hey, YouTube administrator, taking away a woman's advanced features, shadow banning them to the nth degree of themselves, ascertaining that they go nowhere. Block her. She will go nowhere. You will keep doing that. She will go nowhere. She will be frozen for the rest of her days. I'm sorry. I keep on saying I don't even know what corporate South Africa today looks like. The makeup of it. It's individual inputters, contributors. I don't even know what really truly is going on. Like, what is your barometer at this present juncture of success, of prosperity, of excellence? I mean, it can't be you. It can't be you. If you're using each other as a barometer for success, it means the country has re-established its normal distribution to just average. Like, the majority of people are just hugely average, such that those that are ever so slightly above average look like geniuses. A nation like that is going to flop, faint, fall apart, make like a fishy, outside of the ocean, breathing its last, flapping, understandably about to code. Because after all, it's not breathing. What in the world? We are living on a planet that is rich with understanding, knowledge, information, resources. We are living in the information age. So when people learn stuff, they use their existing hereditary gifting to basically supplement it and so flourish it. They mushroom understanding in any given room. So knowledge begets knowledge. And so with extra knowledge, there is extra industry, trade, there is extra economic growth. But I mean, when we're dealing with lackluster souls that can only ever stay so mediocre, it means that that which you can do with whatever factors awarded you, with whatever variables are entered into your ecosystem, is average. You can only ever make a cube out of Lego pieces. Because far be it from you to so ingenuously make a doll out of Lego pieces. You don't have the wits. So when you are living on a planet so rich with information and countries out here popping out like popcorn, manufacturing stars among them that are making their nations look really great, and you ascertain that your nation's popped popcorn is incubated in obscurity because you are jealous, your whole country is done for. Your youth will never compare to the youths of other countries, because the youth that are killing it are like me, just buried, beleaguered, incarcerated, hostages to ridiculous buffoons who can't tie their shoelaces, and yet they insist that geniuses pop babies for freak men. What are your corporates looking like? What is your barometer? What are your barometers? What are you measuring success against? If it's global standards, it is no wonder you are flopping and falling apart, South Africa. It is no wonder your electric grid is not an electric grid, but whatever. It is no wonder there are potholes everywhere. It is no wonder there is so much corruption. It is no wonder you are bordering on being a failed state. It is no wonder witches are thriving. It is no wonder you keep on gentlemen agreeing with freaks, fools, people with little understanding. Your country will keep on doing that on a loop until all of its best people are going to get vacuumed out of here. The diaspora. I keep talking about it. The theft from your entertainment industry of Tyler was not a mistake, neither of Trevor Noah. Elon Musk, I could go on. You will keep on losing your best people because they gather dust in your shores. They gather dust. All they can do is gather dust. You are burying them. You cannot compete with global markets. From as far back as I can remember, South Africa has been substandard academically in comparison to global standards. I was saddened to learn that what I considered to be very technical, difficult mathematics that I was studying at high school was nothing in comparison, for my grade anyway, to what kids in the same grade in other countries are learning. I felt robbed by mere virtue of being born in South Africa. But I mean, when you live in a country where they're prepared to go and grab the 50% pass mark and make it 45%, on a sliding scale, slowly but surely, separate higher grade and standard grade. On a sliding scale, despite separating standard grade and higher grade, going on right ahead to make pass mark at higher grade, now 40%. And then on standard grade, as if though it's not easy enough, 35%. I saw that happen throughout my tenure as a student in high school. Every single year, the Department of Education was out here lowering the pass mark, all in order to make it look as if though there are more and more matriculants passing every single year. So, I mean, duh. When are we ever going to do calculus in high school when you are doing that to the education system?